Okay, so here's the thing. About 9 months ago, I made a video talking about Mike Rowe of Dirty Jobs fame. The basic overriding theme and premise of that video is that Mr. Rowe is a net negative to the labor movement and to the broader working class. The too long didn't watch version of that video is that if someone is not actively pro union and pro organized labor, if they don't support pro union and pro worker legislation, and if they use their voice to speak for corporate interests rather than worker interests, then they are a negative force for the working class. The more substantial their voice, the more of a negative they become. Mike Rowe has cultivated quite a strong voice over the years. So shortly after I put this episode out, Mike Rowe, according to the post I'm going to talk about in a minute, found the video that I made posted on the r/union subreddit on the Reddit website. Roughly 10 or 10, 12 days ago from the time I'm recording this, after finding the Reddit thread and watching the video, Mike Rowe called me out in a Facebook crash out post. In that post, between honestly smarmy snark and attacks on my honor, for whatever that's worth, my credibility, my honesty, he invited me onto his show. He challenged me to discuss the role of unions going forward in this country. For some reason, that's not really what I'd want to talk to him about. I'd have wanted to talk about him not being pro-organized labor. I did reach out on Facebook and on Instagram, and he did not respond to either a public post or a direct message. Or his team. I don't know who really runs those social medias. But because he did not respond, I think that we can officially say that Mike Rowe is terrified to talk to me. Not really, Mike. Relax. I know you're watching this. I know you subscribe to my channel. I saw. I don't think that you're actually afraid to talk to me, and it's cool. It's all right. It's not the kind of thing I usually do, so whatever. It's fine. I'm sure that you get tons of messages every day being a celebrity with millions of followers, over 1 million on YouTube, probably millions more on your other social medias. And, that's cool. Now, Mike also suggested that I slandered him. This I refute absolutely. I did not knowingly speak any lies about you, Mike Rowe. This is important to me, as one of the core principles I have here is that I do not knowingly at least tell lies, right? And I think that knowing is kind of a key to lying, right? I might get something wrong, but I did not lie about you. Originally, I was going to be mean to you, Mr. Rowe. I was just going to let rip with just a grimy ass polemic, right? But I let it sit for a few days, and I decided that I would be more reasonable, to be more of a gentleman than I originally wanted to be. And I do want to address this kind of long-ass Facebook post real quick. I'm not going to, sit here and read the whole thing, break it down line by line, but there are some points that I felt like it was good to address. He starts off talking about how well his Mike Rowe Works Foundation is going, and I'll address this a little bit later when he brings it up again, but I think this is great news. I'm glad it's going well for you. He goes on to say that his mother told him that she was glad that he's doing good things with his celebrity status, which, hey, whatever. I want my mom to be proud of me too. That's cool. But then he transitions to some of the good stuff, I guess. He says, quote, "It's times like these," right after his mother praised him, but whatever. It's times like these that I like to revisit a subreddit page I bookmarked 9 months ago, just to remind myself that in reality, I am a failed actor turned corporate shill who got rich off the backs of the working class. End quote. First off, it's pretty wild, honestly, to find out that you've been living rent-free in the head of a celebrity for 9 months without even realizing it. Like, seriously, that's a really weird thing to deal with, especially as they blast your, what you, the video you made to their millions of followers. You have some weird ass fans too, Mike, but that's something else that we'll talk about later. Just the idea that there's a successful celebrity out there who's, doing good things. I think Mike Rowe works is awesome. He gets to speak to Congress. He gets to, glad hand around famous people and wealthy people and powerful people. That's awesome. But then just seeing that celebrity tell you that they were praised by their mom and that triggers him into hate reading comments agreeing with me, that's a little weird. I just can't help picturing Mike Rowe, sitting on his porch with a cold lemonade, fresh off derailing pro-union legislation, or, from cashing a Walmart check or whatever he's doing over there, Ford, just having a nice day, only to open up that thread and spiral reading the comments. 9 months of self-inflicted, ruined evenings. Not kink shaming, but it's kind of hilarious and awesome at the same time. He goes on in that post, I've attached a link to a long yet ponderous video that outlines the extent of my guile, presented by an anonymous muckraker who holds me in the lowest possible regards. Ponderous, sure. I mean, all of my videos, somebody says I'm too long-winded. I get it. I'm trying to work on it. I'm not that good at it. I tend to overspeak. And I'm not really that anonymous. It's true that I didn't identify myself in that particular episode. That was a failure on my part. There's various reasons for it, but in the end, I failed. I should have told you my name. So, hi, Mike. My name is Sean, and this is Tribunus Plebis. It's nice to meet you. And then he hit me with the muckraker accusation, which definitely felt like it was meant as an insult. But Mike, I have to tell you, I have never been more flattered. Muckraker? Fuck yes, muckraker. That is awesome. Upton Sinclair, Ida Tarbell, legends. And you're putting me in the ranks, their ranks? I mean, Jesus Christ, thank you for including me. I love it. Made my night, made my week, made my year. Muckrakers are really the best of us if you think about it. And just seeing you of all people pin that title on me made me grin ear to ear. He then talks about how I talked about his public history, right? His early career, how he acted and sang and met some wealthy people along the way. And he mentions how I, quote unquote, discovered how he wasn't an actual tradesperson. Okay, so first off, regarding your history, you're right that it is public record. I didn't reveal anything new. This was not presented as like an expose, talking about the secret life of Mike Rowe. This information was literally taken from interviews, like so many interviews I listened to going into this episode. I only included things that you specifically mentioned yourself. At the end of the day, I just thought you had an interesting backstory, an interesting intro into your career, and I thought it might provide some context to the story going forward. I mean, I guess you didn't like it. I don't know what to tell you, man. And no, I did not discover that you don't work in the trades. I merely pointed it out a few times. And also, I'm kind of picking up on a little bit of snark here. Let's tone it down a little bit, buddy. Okay? Moving on, for these reasons, my anonymous, I'm Sean. Okay? I'm sorry. My anonymous critic has determined that I am a fraud, a phony, a hypocrite, and an anti-union scab whose true agenda must now be revealed. So the one thing here is that the scab thing. And brother, I called you a scab because you are one. You crossed a sister union's picket line, a picket line that at that time may have even had SAG people walking it. You crossed a WGA line. And SAG people were supporting that depending on where and when you crossed the picket line. And you did it to promote dirty jobs instead of standing with the strikers. You claim it was a hard decision. I'm not sure that I buy that. You even wrote an entire article defending that decision. That's not a slip. That's a choice which you defended. Why would you even bring this up to try to deny it? For you, as far as I can tell, union membership is about benefits to you selfishly and Hollywood access, not solidarity. When it got inconvenient, you tossed your brothers and sisters aside like so much trash. So don't deny it. Don't act indignant when people bring it up. You crossed the line, and that makes you a scab, period. And no, your singing and your acting has nothing to do with why I'm talking about you right now. It's everything else you do, or, do or don't talk about that led me to that conclusion, not because you sang or because you didn't work in the trades. Honestly, the singing and the acting part, that's the thing I respect most about your career. It's something that I can't do. I have horrific stage fright. I could never go in front of people and perform it. I genuinely 100% respect anybody who does that. I would never mock you for that. And if my original video came off that way to you, I truly do apologize. Okay, so he goes on here about how he made some questionable, let's call it, comments about unions, and various people commented in articles and videos, and this happened years ago. And then he says this: the cognitive dissonance was just too much for them. How could a man with a college diploma criticize the cost of a college degree today? How could a man with no real mechanical skill talk about the upside of learning a trade and the importance of closing the skills gap? More to the point, how could the dirty jobs guy be anti-union? First, I don't really care if you have the skills or went to college. That's pretty irrelevant to everything that I'm saying here. Like I said in my video, I have zero issues with the trades. A trade literally saved me from what probably would have been a pretty rough life. I never went to college, never even considered it. It wasn't for me. It wasn't something that I was cut out to do. Just like working in an office, it's not something that I would have been able to handle. My first job was in an inner city scrapyard at the age of 15. I worked there for a few years. I was very lucky because my stepfather was the general manager. He helped me get into driving. They helped train me to get a CDLB to drive like a straight truck, like a dump truck, basically. And then at 21, I got a CDLA to drive an 18-wheeler. And that license, this trade, has given me a decent life. I even met my wife, who is the love of my life. I met her at my current job. So everything came out really awesome because I learned a trade. I would never judge or criticize people for going to college, criticizing the cost of college, or learning a trade, or even proselytizing for trades like you do. I think it's awesome. Trades are a valid alternative to college. We agree 100% on that. Never in a million years would I criticize you or anybody for doing those things. Luckily for me, you do more than that, so there are things that I feel I can rightly criticize. One of those things is what I view as like the cosplaying as a blue collar guy, I think it's fucking weird. But whatever. I'll set that aside. We don't have to care that you're wearing no blue jeans and a Carhartt hat or whatever. I just think it's a little odd. Going on with the Facebook post, they probably didn't know that I had featured dozens of union workers on Dirty Jobs or spoken at dozens of union events over the years, or awarded millions of dollars in scholarships to hundreds of young men and women who went on to join a trade union. These people probably didn't know that I was a union member myself. Surely, if I enlighten them with all the facts, we could be friends, right? Well, we probably aren't going to be friends, Mike. But this comment here is where we really start getting to the crux of the issue, right? Mike featured dozens of union workers, awesome. Spoke at unions, great. He even had some percentage of graduates from his Mike Rowe Work scholarships join unions. I'm sure all of that's true. I cannot deny it. It's all awesome, wonderful, great. And yes, we all do know that you're in at least the one union, right? I believe it's SAG-AFTRA. And I mentioned that in the video, just to be clear. I knew that, right? We all knew that. And, that's all well and good. But here's the thing. None of that is really being pro-union. And I'll address this a little bit more in just a couple minutes, so stick around. He goes on. Wrong. Turns out people who draw circles around heads and lines through faces are not interested in facts. This is something that comes up a couple times in this post. This is like the most boomer thing. Listen, I'm sorry. All right. I don't know how to make thumbnails. I try to make a thumbnail that people will click. I thought it was funny. Whatever. I'll tell you what, I'll put a circle and line through my face on this thumbnail. Okay. Just to even the score. He continues, neither are they not in. I think you included, I don't think you were supposed to have that not there, unless I copied it wrong. Neither are they interested in nuance or context or perspective. Such people see the world as us versus them. There is no middle ground or partial fealty. In matters of solidarity, it's all or nothing. Which is why I'm fairly confident that the man who made this video will refuse my invitation to appear on my podcast. Sir, I reached out. I made some effort there. You got scared. We all know you're terrified. It's a joke, Mike. Relax. But what you're doing here, right, claiming there's this like made up middle ground and kind of insisting that solidarity is all or nothing, and the arguments about perspective and context and all that stuff. It feels like you're claiming that this is sort of a purity test. Like maybe we mostly agree, right? We both nominally care about the working class workers in this country, but maybe we disagree on some minor trivial point. And just Sean over there, the anonymous guy on the little tiny YouTube channel, he's just going out of his mind, just tearing me up about this little thing that we're kind of alike. We're not alike, Mike. We don't. I mean, it's just wildly wrong. We're not disagreeing over minor details. We're at odds over fundamental issues. And given that, it's not just fair. I think it's entirely reasonable that you get called out and dragged around a little bit for doing this. He continues, if you'd like to have an actual conversation about the role of organized labor in modern society in front of an actual audience, larger and more diverse than the one you're accustomed to, I feel like you're kind of dissing me here. Reach out. I'm easy to find, easy to talk to, though maybe not as easy to slander face to face. And listen, I appreciate the invite. I hate social media, and I try not to read my YouTube comments after a day or two. So I missed your comment on the YouTube video. But I mean, let's let's be real here. Let's be honest. I am probably a lot easier to find and contact than you are. Like I said, I mean, I reached out through DMs. Probably nobody saw it because you probably get hundreds a day. If you really wanted to reach me, you could have done something as easy as just clicking the link tree in the description of the video that you watched for 9 months and spiraled out on, right? I mean, it was right there. You could have seen all of my socials, my email, website. Instead, though, you chose to sick your mic robots on me, sick them on my comments, and you sit there preaching work ethic while you were not even curious enough to look at the description and find the link tree in the YouTube video that you've been watching for 9 months. Also, no, I would not slander you face to face. I wouldn't do that any more than I did in my last video or I'm doing here. Okay? But I probably would say some harsh things to you because sitting next to somebody who would be spitting and spewing the torrent of absolute bullshit that I expect that you'd be throwing at me, it's not really one of my skill sets. Also, the smarm in this Facebook post is really starting to come through at this point. Calm down, Mike. All right, relax. Also, to the Mike Rowe fanboys out there who left comments, most of them not very kind. I know you want to see Mike Rowe destroy the tiny YouTuber who dared to insult the guy that you're a fan of, which is a very weird, parasocial, gross thing to do. Don't do that. You people are adults. Act like adults, okay? This isn't a spectator sport. It's not even like WWE. It's not pro wrestling. This isn't something to be done for your entertainment because you want to get off on whoever you're fanboying for, owning the other guy in the conversation. This shit, it doesn't live in a world of theory, in the world of the abstract. These issues affect very real people, actual human beings, right? The decisions either help or hurt huge amounts of workers based on what happens in this country. This isn't like debate club, online clout, mental masturbation bullshit either. Real people's lives are at stake. Families are at stake. Have some decency. Lastly, in this post, he says, as for the hundreds of people who watched your video and took your allegations and mischaracterizations at face value, and then shared their contempt for me in the comments, they are not welcome on my podcast. However, they are welcome to listen. And I'll leave the post up here so you can read a little bit more. The rest isn't of great importance as far as I'm concerned, but I did want to address this last part about the Reddit post that wrecked your year and the hundreds who agreed with me in the comments. Let's note that it was posted in the largest, as far as I can tell, labor subreddit on the website. I think it's like 140,000 people subbed in there. And 95% of the comments came from rank and file union members. These are workers with real skin in the game, and you dismiss them so callously because they sided with me and you didn't like it, or maybe you just didn't like their tone, right? They didn't come down on that side of agreeing with me and thinking that you're not that great for the working class because of my video. I didn't bring them there. They were already there. And they were there because of what you say and what you do and what you refuse to say and refuse to do. I'm not saying that you should have all these people on your podcast. There's hundreds of them that disagree with you. It's obviously not going to work. But you sure as shit should listen to them because they aren't alone. That's not the only couple hundred people that disagree with you. You can go to those union subreddits. There's a bunch of them out there. Search your name. I did. There's a lot of threads and a lot of comments, and to be honest, the vast majority are calling you out in the same way that I did. Go ahead and, bookmark them all, right? For years, every time your mother says that she's proud of you, you'll have somewhere to go to hate read. And you'll I don't know, get off on it, whatever that you do with that. You can go there, you can read those threads, read those comments. But if you do, you should really sit with it a while. And I'm not saying that it'll change your mind. But I mean, goddamn, there are a lot of people out there that you claim to support, that you say you are supporting, who think that you're doing the opposite. And you should really put some weight on that shit. Whether it's maybe, hey, if they're wrong, if I'm wrong, and if they're all wrong, but we all believe it, then maybe you're just not saying things the right way. Maybe your messaging is that far off and you need to recalibrate that. All right, so let's talk about pro-union, anti-union, and ambivalence, Mike. From what I've seen, you are at best ambivalent about unions, if not outright anti-union. You don't seem particularly invested in whether they exist beyond saying the right things in public and, making speaking appearances at union halls. Maybe you're not on a mission to destroy them, but I reject outright the idea that you are actively pro-union. I don't believe it, and I'll defend that position going forward. In preparing for the first video and this one, I watched dozens of hours of you droning on and on about the honor and glory and dignity of hard work and about your sweat pledge and blue-collar dirty jobs and on all that stuff. And by the way, I guess just as an aside here, that sweat pledge of yours is just straight garbage, man. No matter what else comes of this, that I will not stop saying that thing is garbage. It's truly a terrible read. It's a terrible document, and you should not make people sign that crap. And by the way, the only thing worse than the sweat pledge is your little what was it? Safety third. Your little safety third model, right? I've personally seen what happens when people don't take safety as being the primary thing that they're doing with their job. When they view safety as being third. And listen, I get it. I've heard you talk about it, right? Safety third is like a big, funny joke, right? A subversive take to get people talking. I understand. But I've had the misfortune of finding a woman pinned to a wall by a forklift, and I had to be the guy that hopped on the forklift and pulled it off of her, and I watched her collapse to a concrete warehouse floor with a shattered hip, a broken femur, and cracked ribs. I knew a guy who he didn't properly lock out, tag out when he was working on a truck and got crushed to death. I saw a guy mangle his leg in a machine because he didn't properly turn the power off and lock out, tag out again. So, like a subversive, edgy motto to get people talking, whatever nonsense you talk about it somehow falls short to me, right? And I bet it falls short to the woman who got crushed by that forklift and the guy who got his leg mangled. And I sure as shit know that it falls short to the wife and the two children who never saw their husband or father again. There's just no need for that sort of nonsense, right? No matter how subversive and funny you think it is. So, all right. So back to the main point here. I listened to all of those hours of you talking, right? I read your blog posts, tweets, Facebook posts, everything that I could find. And I kept listening and I kept reading and I used Control F to search for keywords, right? Union, organized labor, so on. I searched the transcripts and the blog posts and the interviews, and like, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you, Mike. The results were kind of lacking. All right. And they still are. I went to Twitter just yesterday, something which I absolutely hate doing, and I searched your posts. I looked up things like union, labor, organized labor, and so on. After doing that, looking up about 10 different words and phrases, just one post popped up after a lot of scrolling, which was semi-relevant. And it was you responding to an accusation of being anti-union. You responded to a mother by being thoroughly not pro-union. You basically told a mother that her son could learn to weld and maybe he could get a union job, or maybe not. You didn't really worry about it because he didn't want to sign your sweat pledge. And because of that, you denied a scholarship, right? And that's up to you, right? It's your money to hand out. But to me, it's just more ambivalence. It's not pro-union. I scoured your posts on multiple platforms and, to be honest, didn't find shit. Literally not one tweet, not one post saying organize a union. Not one saying go, I don't know, fight, strike, supporting a strike, nothing. That's not being pro-union. The closest that I got were a few Labor Day posts, which I was like, oh, hey, he's talking about Labor Day. But those were just to celebrate Mike Rowe Works' anniversary. And you never mentioned unions or organized labor in any of those Labor Day posts. In one Labor Day post, you linked to an article. The tweet says this. It says, I was going to write something substantive for Labor Day, but realized I could do no better. Give it a look if you're curious about why Mike Rowe Works is celebrating its 10th anniversary today. And the link that you provided was to an article written by Stephen Malanga. He is an outspoken, anti-union, conservative hack who has made a career of trashing labor unions, and especially public sector unions. How very pro-labor, pro-union of you, Mike. You did that on Labor Day, no less. What an absolute legend. And this is the one day where we should be talking about organized labor all day, and we got not a single word about it from you. This is what the big supposed pro-labor guy could do no better than. The article itself is just, the usual libertarian, individualistic work ethic nonsense that Mike Rowe seems to almost like deify in his work. And that's what you chose to post on Labor Day. So let's run through a few questions here, some rhetorical, some not, some I know the answers to already. And let's use these to calibrate where you might stand for real on unions. Do you support the single best piece of pro-union legislation that has come through our government at all in my entire life? And I am 48. And that is the PRO Act. No, you don't. You've made it very clear. Why don't you? It's because you don't like the idea of millions of workers being properly classified as employees instead of being exploited as so-called independent contractors. You're obsessed with this fantastical myth of the power of independent negotiations, as if that's ever worked for the average worker under capitalism in America. It has not. That fantasy is exactly why unions had to exist in the first place, to correct the power imbalance. You really think that gig workers benefit by being considered independent contractors? You cannot possibly believe that. And those are the guys that you're leaving behind by not supporting this act. Those are the people that you're helping deprive of justice and dignity. Now, at best, as far as I can tell at least, you just don't understand what the bill is saying. At worst, you're deliberately misleading people. I'd like to believe it's ignorance, not dishonesty. Now, most of your criticism seems rooted in what happened in California with Bill AB 5, which was a bill aimed at protecting gig workers, yes, but also one with issues that were inherent in the bill. You're right about that. It was not a good bill. Even worse is that it was then gutted by the corporate-funded Proposition 22. You are right to criticize that. But the PRO Act is a much better, more refined, more well-written piece of legislation. Also, in the PRO Act, the definition of employee that you're so concerned about, as far as I can tell, it only applies to NLRA purposes regarding collective bargaining rights, not wages or benefits. Even gig workers, or actually, you know what? Collective bargaining rights might not be the right way to say that. It's about whether or not they can organize a union. So even gig workers would only be considered employees in this case for the purposes of forming and joining a union. It has nothing to do with like their status for wages and benefits. For all other aspects, they would still be classified as independent contractors, right? For everything from wages and benefits to taxes and everything else. Now, unlike you, I'll stop short of accusing you of lying, and I'll assume that you just don't understand. Frankly, I wish that this bill went further, but it's nowhere near where you claim it is. Do you support minimum wage? Kind of. From what I've heard you say, you sort of kind of do a little bit, but not enough. You've said that you don't support federal or even state level minimum wages, but maybe, I guess you support local ones, maybe citywide ones. Now, personally, I think we need stronger, broader laws on this subject, but at least you're a little bit, tiny bit on board. Okay, now here are some questions that I don't know the answers to, but I can and will take a guess on how you'd answer just from listening to you talk about this stuff for hours. Do you support card check? I seriously doubt this one. Your past statements and hyper-individualistic views make it incredibly hard to believe that you would support a card check rule. Do you support right to work, or do you support repealing right to work laws? I'm going to bet that you don't, Mike. It's highly doubtful. You seem pretty committed to the idea of the individual negotiation thing as being the gold standard of, human development. I disagree. I think right to work laws are terrible. They're only there to destroy unions, not provide freedom for workers, and we need to get rid of them. Do you support repealing Taft-Hartley? Almost certainly not, right? Hey, if I'm wrong, surprise me. It'd be nice. So if I'm correct on even half of those, then riddle me this, Mike. How exactly are you pro-union? I mean, lay it out there, man. How are you pro-union if you don't support any of those things? How can you claim that, being pro-union, when you seem to oppose or be indifferent to, at best, right, about every single meaningful pro-labor policy that comes up? Here's one more. Do you support unions coordinating to align contracts to expire on May Day of 2028 to create the conditions for a general strike and stronger, greater bargaining power? As far as I can tell, no. God, I have never heard you talk about it, but I have a really hard time believing that you could possibly support something that was, like, A, so bold, B, so against the corporate interest, and C, so worker-led. I haven't heard you talk about it, but I can't imagine. So as far as I can tell, you are against every single major effort to create new unions, to grow existing ones, or to strengthen existing ones. Are you for anything at all in this space. Like, what do you support? If you supported even one or two meaningful initiatives, maybe there'd be something to like hang your hat on. Maybe there'd be something to talk about with you. But from what I've seen, it's just no right up and down that whole board. So I guess the question is, what legislation do you support to help unions grow? What pro-union messaging are you pushing out there on your social media, in your speeches? Because that has to be the baseline. That's what it means to be pro-union, to be pro-labor, to be pro-working class. But that's not what you do. You either don't support these things, push back on them, or worse, like you cross picket lines and you scab. Like, it's not even neutrality. Ambivalence and like low effort qualified support don't make you pro anything. That's not support, it's complacency. And in practice, this sort of ambivalence is just anti-unionism by another name. So let's look at this from another angle. Who's paying you? Who's funding these things? Now, I'm not saying that you're being bribed or being told what to say. I'm not calling you corrupt, Mike Rowe. I want you to hear that. This is not my claim. What I am saying is this. If you were actually pro-union in any meaningful way, the Koch brothers wouldn't give you a dime. They wouldn't give you a penny. Lockheed Martin or Raytheon or United Technologies, they would not give you a single penny. A huge chunk of your backers would vanish overnight. They're not paying you to say what they want. Again, I don't believe that. I'm hoping that's not true. The point is that you're already saying it. You're saying it without the money. They just fund you because you're saying it. If you ever came out in strong support of unions, of organized labor, if you actually pushed for legislation like the PRO Act or called for new union building, union strengthening, union growing, all of those checks, all of that funding would stop instantly. Just like that, it would be over. Now, you can justify taking that money however you want. I'm not even going to argue with you. You want to fund Mike Rowe Works, whatever, justify it. But let's not pretend that we all can't see exactly what this all means. We know why these particular people are comfortable supporting you, and it's not because you are a threat to them or to capital. And here's another way to gauge it. Let's look at your audience. Let's look at your fans. Let's look at the people who came after me in the comments, right? That you sent over. Not a single pro-union message was left in those comments, but plenty of anti-union rhetoric was. That's who hears you. That's who listens to you. That's who has this weird parasocial relationship with you. These are the people that you're energizing with the things that you do. So let's take a look at this comment here. I'll put it up. I'm going to black out the name to avoid throwing the person's name out there. It's fine. But here's what it said. It starts off, I've only worked in a couple of union shops by choice. Just as one example as to why, the first one I worked in, I was hired at my university to do grounds work. It turns out that the university was trying to cut costs by hiring students to undercut the overpaid union workers. Now, at first, when I read this, it sounded like a promising story. He seems like in the union, got hired as a groundskeeper at this college. Maybe he's upset that the university was using student labor to undercut union wages. I'd be upset about that too, right? And I'm just like, wow, maybe we're about to hear a story about some righteous solidarity, right? Some righteous worker action. And he continues, because the university hired me to undercut the union pay using student employment as an excuse, union employees treated me like crap because it was obviously my fault. They treated me more like crap the harder I worked because it made them look bad when they fucked off all day. Oh my God, Mike Rowe. The commenter was the scab. The scab was in the building the entire time, Mike Rowe, and he was in your audience. And now, here he is, whining that the union workers treated his scab ass poorly. They should have. That's the thing they should have. He was scabbing, Mike Rowe. He was there. You were there. You were, are, and remain a scab, anonymous YouTube commenter. And this guy doubles down with, the classic anti-union trope that union workers are sitting around all day getting paid to do nothing. Probably most likely bullshit, right? And he goes on a whole multi-comment rant with more of the same. But here's the actual point, Mike, the reason why I bring this comment up. If you're truly pro-union, or even just not anti-union, right? If you're ambivalent, I guess, then why is this kind of commenter feeling at home in your audience? Why is your fan base full of people openly hostile to organized labor? Where are your pro-union supporters? None of them came in the comments. Where are the comments from, people defending solidarity, from defending bargaining, defending labor rights? None of them were there. If you were half as pro-union as you claim to be, a guy like this, a self-described scab who does not like union workers, would not feel comfortable in your space. He certainly wouldn't be throwing on his little rat cape and flying to your defense in a parasocial weird behavior and coming into my comments and, trashing workers. They'd be, I guess, you know what? Say what you will about me. But my audience, a scab would not last 5 minutes in my audience. They'd be chased off on the rhetoric alone. They wouldn't feel supported or welcome or comfortable because they aren't welcome and they shouldn't be comfortable. They'd know that they were on the wrong side of everything that I talk about and they wouldn't hang around, and they sure as hell wouldn't be running around defending me in other people's social media posts, right? Can you say the same about your audience? No, obviously not, because it literally just happened. You are funded by massive anti-union corporations. Your audience is packed with people who are proudly, loudly, virulently anti-union. You've got actual scabs in the comments defending you. And you're a picket line breaking scab yourself. So tell me again, what exactly did I get wrong in my previous video? Because from where I'm sitting, everything that actually mattered in that video was dead on. And yeah, I'm a muckraker, right? And one day, I was out there raking that muck with my rake, and I found something under all that muck. And I hooked it with my rake, and I dragged it out. And what I found was Mike Rowe, a scab. And just to close this out, if Mike Rowe has another Facebook boomer meltdown and crushes my career before it even starts, let me leave you with what Joe Hill told Big Bill Haywood before he was wrongly executed by the state. I die like a true blue rebel. Don't waste any time mourning. Organize. And that's it. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Love you all. That's it.